Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Green New York Lunchtime Learning webinar series. I want to thank everybody for taking time to join us here, especially in the busy month of September. My name is Brendan Woodruff. I'm the Director of Sustainability at the New York State DEC. So we've got a couple housekeeping things that we wanted to get started here today before we get into our presentation. The first one is a big thank you to Madison Wall, who did a great job guest hosting last month. Also wanted to let folks know that everyone is on mute when you enter the webinar. And if you have questions as we go along, please type them into the chat box. We'll get to the questions at the end, so make sure you type those in as we go along. This webinar also is being recorded and it will be posted on the Green New York website afterwards. There's a link in the chat already that you can click on, and that's where you're going to be able to register for upcoming webinars, and you'll be able to view recordings of previous webinars as well. So our next Lunchtime Learning webinar is going to be on October 11th, and it's on electric micromobility. So e-bikes, e-scooters, and other forms of electric propulsion that is not electric vehicles. And I just wanted to put a plug in here as well. If anybody has any topics that they'd like to see us cover in the near future, please type them into the chat box. We are looking for suggestions for topics to cover beyond October, so please let us know if you have any. So without further ado, I want to get into today's presentation. We have a fantastic presenter here. We have Shannon Singh-Hua from DEC. She's the co-writer of Living the Green Life, if you've ever seen any of those fantastic publications that DEC puts out. And Shannon, take it away.
Thanks, Brendan. Hi, everyone. My name is Shannon Singh-Hua. I work with the Office of Communication Services here at DEC. I'm on the web team, and I write along with another coworker, Living the Green Life, as Brendan said. We do a different theme each month on sustainability practices, so if you ever want tips and tricks, I would definitely check that out, as we do cover different themes each month. So with that, I'll get it started as we talk about greening up your home office today. So we're all using an electronic device currently, I'm sure, whether that be your laptop, your computer, maybe your phone. So we'll get started with talking about ways to be sustainable with those items while you're at home. So something that you might want to turn on your computers or laptops is sleep mode. And a big thing is energy savings when it comes to using our devices. So our devices use up a lot of energy throughout the day, and maybe we're not always on them. Maybe we step away for a little while, and we should put our devices in sleep mode so that they're able to conserve our energy consumption. So if you go to your settings, you'll be able to find that sleep mode practice, and you can set it to different times depending on how often you step away from your computer, or maybe you're stepping away for lunch or to take a meeting on a phone. Definitely a good solution to trying to conserve some energy. Also, hibernation mode works the same way on your devices as well. So the amount of energy that you save is also going to depend on the type of device that you have. So I won't give you one particular factual number about that, but just keep in mind that it's definitely better than keeping your computers, laptops on at all times. Another thing you can do is unplug devices when you are not using them. So things like chargers that you're not currently using, you should take those out from the outlets, even though you're not having a device plugged into them to charge at a particular moment. There is something called phantom energy, and that's wasted energy that's still being consumed while these items are plugged in. So if you have a surge protector or a power strip, I suggest plugging items that you don't necessarily use all of the time into those power strips, and it's easy to just flick that off when you don't need them. So with our electronics, some of them might die, and we might need to replace them, and in the replacement process, we need to get rid of our old devices. So we have e-waste recycling available here in New York State, and you have two options there with that. So there is a manufacturer's take-back program, and that is under the New York State Electronic Equipment Recycling and Reuse Act. And under that act, manufacturers are required to provide free and convenient recycling of electronic waste to consumers. So private businesses or you as a consumer, there is a list of covered electronic equipment on our DEC website. I've provided the link right there for you. So if you go to that list, you can see what items are covered under that act and what manufacturers are required to take back. Now, you may notice if you've ever looked into a program like that there is still a fee. And that's because things like data wiping are still not covered under that act. So those are things that if you don't know how to do those yourself, the manufacturer will provide a fee to you to get rid of that data and other things as well. The Recycle Right New York page website is also a great resource for finding what e-waste can be recycled with these manufacturers. So I would definitely take a look at that. And it's also a great place to check out their Recyclopedia. And if you ever have any questions about other items that you would like to recycle, I would definitely check that out. As some of you may know, recycling is not the same throughout New York State, and it's definitely best to find out what your local municipalities will take into their recycling and into their waste, just to make sure that you aren't wish cycling. So that's going to be if you think that something is recyclable, it may not actually be in fact, and you may be contaminating the recycling process. So definitely take a look at the Recycle Right website, find out what your local rules are, and to make sure that you're recycling properly and you're discarding of waste correctly. So this kind of hits a little bit on your home as a whole, but I definitely wanted to talk about it because you're in your workspace in your home. Obviously, you need to stay cool or warm depending on the time of year. So something that's important are thermostat settings. So if you have a particular setting that you really love, and I know everyone is very particular about their thermostat settings, so it's a little tough to think about changing them. But I would think about the energy savings that changing your thermostat settings can give you. So if you can save as much as 10% a year on your heating and cooling by simply turning your thermostat up or down 7 to 10 degrees for a portion of the day. And energy.gov actually gives a few suggestions for your thermostat settings. So in the winter time, if you're at home, it should be between 68 and 70 degrees or lower. If you're away or sleeping, it should be 60 degrees or lower. In the summertime, if you're at home, between 76 to 78 or above, and 85 or above if you're away. And I know those are high numbers or low numbers depending on the time of year, but there are ways, if you are trying to save energy, to still stay cool in your home if you are willing to change your thermostat settings. So during the winter, wear extra layers around your house. When it's sunny outside, definitely open up those curtains to let the sun in, natural warmth into your home. When it's cloudy, make sure to close your curtains to keep the cold air out. In the summertime, definitely wear less layers if you can. Open up your windows in your home to create a breeze, to create more airflow as well. Cross ventilation is important in cooling your home, but also for your indoor air quality. So if you think about all of the chemicals and things that you use in your home, maybe from aerosol sprays to cleaning chemicals, if your home is closed up, all of those chemicals are interacting and creating not the best air quality for you and your family. So one thing that I do like doing in my home when it's cool outside, opening up the windows throughout your home, making sure that a window is open at the back, the front, the side, and that's going to create a cross ventilation process and help the airflow through your home better. And it is one of the most energy efficient ways to cool your home. So definitely big energy savings right there if you do that one. Another thing, ceiling fans. I recently just learned this myself. I did not know that the direction of your fans can actually help to heat, or not heat, but warm or cool your home. So in the summertime, your fan should be rotating counterclockwise, and this helps to create a cool breeze if the fan is high enough, and it creates the breeze and keeps your room area a lot cooler and reduces the amount that you might need to be using your AC or cooling units. in the wintertime, if you make them rotate clockwise, if you think about this, heat rises, and with the fan rotating clockwise, it will push that warm air down and create a warmer space in your home. Again, reducing the amount that you might need to use your heating system. And doing things like that with the fan, I've researched that and it can save up to 15% or so on your heating bills. So that's pretty exciting. And I know with heating and energy costs going up, could be a big deal for everyone. The same goes for fans. If you have standalone fans, box fans, those also work in the summertime if you're trying to keep your area cool without using your AC or trying to keep your AC at a lower or at a higher level during the summertime. Keeping a fan near you is going to keep you cool, and again, energy savings here. So another thing that we definitely need while we're working in our workspace, you definitely need light. So if you're lucky enough to have a window in your home, in your workspace, definitely open those up, open the curtains up, bring in this natural sunshine. If it's cool out and you add in that warmth to your space with that sunshine, that's great. If you're not lucky enough to have a window in your space, then I would definitely be making the switch to LED light bulbs. So there's LED light bulbs, CFL light bulbs, and incandescent light bulbs. Now, I know a lot of people are questioning the use of LED light bulbs and if they are actually more energy efficient than the others. And the answer is yes. So the average life of an LED light bulb is about 25,000 hours in comparison to a CFL, where it is about 8,000 hours, and an incandescent is about 1,200. So you're saving about 80% of energy when you're switching from an incandescent light bulb to an LED light bulb. It produces a lot less heat, it lasts longer, there's no mercury in them, and they use a lot less wattage. And again, they last a lot longer. So those are a couple of ways to add light to your space. Next, we'll talk about decorating. So we don't want our space to be boring or blah. We're there for most of our day. So of course we want it to be a place that we love to be in, a place that makes us happy. So when I decorate my space, I like to think about secondhand items that I could use. If I go to a thrift shop, I look for decor items there as well. And secondhand items can be fun because you can exchange with your family or your friends. If they don't need something and it's something that you've been looking for, I would definitely make that your first go-to when trying to find new items. So there's a graphic here from Recycle Right New York, and it's talking about how can you reuse a glass item. So things like that. Start thinking about how you can reuse your pasta sauce glass bottle that you just finished with your spaghetti last week. Maybe it can hold pencils or pens or something else that you might need in your office. Turn it into a flower vase. Starting to think about a second life to an old item instead of discarding it into the trash or the recycling receptacles. You can bring new life to them and bring new life into your room, to your home. And it's a great way to just decorate as well. DIY projects, same thing. You can make it all your own. Add plants to a space. I know a lot of people do that here in central office in DEC. And it just brightens up the place, honestly. It makes it a lot less sad in the office and a lot less gloomy in the office when you see a lot of plants and greenery around the place. And of course, it's going to add oxygen to the area. And I mean, there's certain plants provide different benefits. Some help with air quality. So do a little bit of research and see what you want to add to your space. And those are definitely good ways to bring in life into your room. So it wouldn't be a lunchtime learning if we didn't actually talk about lunch. So meal prepping. I think meal prepping is a huge thing, and I'm trying to be better at this myself. Um, we if we tend to meal prep at the beginning of the week or midweek, whenever you would like to, we tend to waste a lot less food. And then we tend to create a lot less waste. So if you're creating your meals, you're bringing them to work, or you're prepping them so you can eat them throughout the day while you're at home, you're going to avoid purchasing out and creating a lot of single-use items that you bring back with you, that you end up not using and discarding of. Um, a lot less plastic bag waste. A lot of food shops do still use plastic bags because the law does not affect the food restaurants and things like that. So you're avoiding a lot of packaging waste when you're avoiding buying lunch outside. Buy local. I like to go to farmers markets, especially in the summer, into the fall. I think some of them are still going on currently. So if you can get to one and pick up some local produce, that would be great. Keep them stocked up in your fridge, make your weekly lunches with those. And a lot of those, they don't come in plastic packaging, so you're avoiding all of that packaging waste that you would normally get by buying your produce at a grocery store. One big thing that you can think about is just limiting the amount that you throw into the garbage and recycling bins. So I don't know if anyone has heard about composting before, but there's a picture up at the top with a bucket and some vegetables being chopped up. So the waste from the vegetables, the stems and everything go into that compost bucket, and this person might have a compost pile on site, or I've heard that local farmers markets, I know my local farmers market does this, they take compost on a weekly basis. So if you kind of gather that up in some sort of container in your home, like a big glass jar or something like that, you can bring those to your local local farmers markets to be composted. I also talked about less waste. So I'll revert back to earlier when I was talking about your electronics. So one big thing that we might all have in our homes, or we might be doing a lot of, is printing paper. So I know that paper waste can be a lot, and one thing that we should try to do is create a lot less paper waste, print a lot less than we do now. And one way to do that, you share files online. You email files back and forth. I know I use OneDrive or SharePoint to share documents with my coworkers, and we can easily collaborate that way instead of printing off papers and scribbling off things and reviewing that way. That it keeps the trail a lot more clean and reduces your paper waste significantly. I'll talk about a few other things too. So going back to talking about phantom energy. So things like when you're leaving a room, definitely turn off the lights. I know that's a big thing in my household. My family likes to keep lights on at all times, but it's best to turn those off when rooms are not in use, when electronics are not in use. Try to get into the practice of turning those off, unplugging items so that you're not wasting a lot of energy. I believe with light, they say about 15% of our energy bills come from lights, and a lot of the time we're not even using them. Try to use your natural light, your sunlight that comes through when the sun is shining. Open up your curtains, keep your house warm that way. There's a lot of things that you can do on a daily basis that can just add up to energy savings, money savings, and just being overall more sustainable in your everyday life. And it's not about doing all of these things at once. It's really about taking the time, picking a few things every week, every month, however you prefer to do it. Try to do it consistently so you'll get more in the habit of these green actions in your daily life. And all of that's going to add up, and it's going to have you being a more sustainable person in your everyday life. So again, check out Living the Green Life for monthly tips on being a friend of the environment. I believe next month or in the next couple months, we're talking about fall sustainable hunting food. So we're talking about making foods with deer meat and things like that. And this month we talked about I think back to school stuff. So I would definitely take a look. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and you'll get to see tips and tricks that we share via those platforms as well. And I'll turn it back over to Brendan to start with some questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shannon. That was absolutely fantastic. And I appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge with everybody here today. So we have a couple of questions and comments here. One thing that I like that you mentioned there towards the end is that it's not about doing everything at once. It's about doing what you're able to do now and making those small improvements that add up over time. I think that's a really important thing to kind of focus on here is that anything you do, no matter how small, has a good positive impact, and that's really important. The other thing I just wanted to mention too that I was thinking about as you were going through the presentation is in a lot of ways, remote work actually makes it more easy to be sustainable when you're talking about things like waste reduction, and especially in that area when you're looking at not having to package things up, maybe taking single-use packaging, maybe grabbing coffee in the morning because you can just turn on the coffee maker and relax while you're making it instead of fighting traffic. So, in some ways, it's intrinsically easier to be more sustainable through remote work. And I think you did a good job, too, of going through some of the areas, especially like heating and cooling, where we can make a difference that might have some additional impact there. So first question we have here for you is this person wants to learn more about repair cafes. Do you have any information on where folks can learn about where they can attend repair cafes or find out what things are being repaired at them?
I believe that there is a repaircafe.org. I would just Google that, and they do provide some local areas that give those to you. If you do visit the Living the Green Life page this month, we do talk a little bit about repair cafes, so you can go there as well. And I did learn that with repair cafes, you do get to learn how to repair the item yourself. So it's not just you going to someone and they're going to repair it and you leave. If the item breaks again, you get to learn how to fix it on your own. So I think that's a great benefit to these repair cafes.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice there. And I really like that fact. I did not realize that myself, that they'll teach you how to fix it. So that's awesome. So a couple comments have come in as well. One person has noticed many of their coworkers leaving their monitors on day after day, including on weekends. Working from home, that's one thing you don't have to worry about, because if you accidentally leave it on at Friday at 4:30, you can just go in at Friday at 5:01 and turn it off. But I guess that leads to a question here too for you, Shannon, is do you have any thoughts on things like that, on how to potentially broach subjects with your coworkers, or especially with things like monitors, any campaigns or anything that have worked to get people to turn electronics off?
I'm not sure, because I think my team's pretty good at doing this, but I think it's because we've kind of mentioned it in passing to one another, like, hey, like, turn your monitors off or put your monitors to sleep when you leave, put your computer to sleep when you leave for the weekend or for the evening. So if you just kind of have simple conversations with your coworkers, just mention things, mention the benefits for sure. And I think if you're all on the same page and you're working toward the same goal and benefit of energy savings and being more sustainable, then I think people will catch on. Again, not everyone's going to catch on right away. These things do take time, but they also do take conversation. And if you need to continue having the conversation or bringing it up, then I think that might be okay to have that discussion with them.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So somebody typed into the chat here a link to repaircafehv.org for the Hudson Valley.
Yep.
So that's a great place to look for ones in the Hudson Valley there as well. We have a person who submitted a comment saying their employer has a system to automatically shut down the computers at 8 p.m. And that leads to a question here. Do you know of any, I don't know if Windows or Apple or any of the other operating systems have functions like that where you can automatically turn it off. Do you know anything like that?
I do not. That's probably an ICS question, but that'd be awesome if there was.
Yeah. And that's a good point too, with a lot of this stuff that you're using in your home. Shannon talked a lot about kind of the phantom loads or the vampire loads. Some of this home automation stuff that folks are bringing into their home, whether it be the smart thermostats or other things, you can actually set around your schedule. So instead of you having to think about it all the time, and sometimes your head does get filled with everything as you're running out the door or something, there is that potential for automation in some ways as well, where systems are automatically turn things on at 7 a.m. when you wake up or whatnot.
Yep. Yeah, I know my computer is set to, I believe, go to sleep after about 15 minutes or 20 minutes of an activity. So there's definitely settings that you can use for when you just kind of forget about it.
Yeah. So we have another question in here about space heaters. This person is typically cold. They work in one room in the house, and they use a space heater to heat that room rather than turning on the full boiler. Do you know much about the energy? This is a very specific question. Do you know if that would be better than heating the whole house with the boiler turning it on? Or any thoughts about that?
I mean, I don't know much about space heaters. My initial thought would be because it's just heating a small space instead of using your whole heating system to heat your entire home in areas that you don't need it. I would think that it would be a lot more energy savings than, of course, heating a whole entire home instead of a small space. That's a great question. I have to look into that.
Yes, that is a good one. And obviously the caveats about being safe with space heaters, no matter where you're using them and following the instructions properly. The one thing I will say about that as well is if it is an electric space heater and you're able to turn the boiler off or significantly down, you're directly burning less fossil fuels through the boiler, whether it's oil or propane or natural gas, and you're switching that to electricity. So that is a way to electrify some of your heating, and you can directly lower your fossil fuel consumption. One other question here is putting something to sleep the same as turning it off?
No. So I did a little bit of research into this, and what I found was that there was a little bit of, is this better than that kind of conversation. So I believe with the turning off your computer, they say that with rebooting it the next day, you're going to use a bit more energy to boot the whole system back up. So I would say, I think the best practice here would be to put your computers to sleep when you leave for work, and you will be back the next day. So putting it to sleep and then waking it up the next day is going to use a lot less energy than rebooting your whole entire system. Now, if you're putting your computer to sleep for long periods for days on end, and your system might need to be rebooted more frequently. So I'd say if you're done for the week, you're done for the weekend, definitely that would be the time to turn off your computers and then reboot them Monday morning or the next day that you're in the office. I think that would be your best practice there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So another question here, since if you're working remotely, you have the ability to do more zero waste lunch type stuff and a little bit more cooking than what you get with a microwave in a hot plate at work. What's your favorite remote work lunch, go-to lunch recipe?
My
meal?
favorite, oh wow. That's a great question. I like something quick. So anything like a tuna wrap or a chicken cutlet wrap, something like that. And I tend to use these days to consume a lot more fresh vegetables and everything. So because it's easy, it's right there in my fridge. I can chop it up, things like that, instead of, making something like that, bringing it to the office, and then it's not as nice and fresh. So yeah, definitely like a tuna wrap or something with a lot of vegetables.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot more vegetables as well. You're right, because it's so much easier to
Yeah,
just have them ready right there
yeah,
rather than transporting them or anything else. They seem to stay fresher. Somebody else
yeah.
commented in here, leftovers from dinner the night before. That is always
Mhm.
a solid one as well.
Yep.
So if you have any further questions, please type them into the chat box. So I want to thank Shannon for taking the time to share her expertise with us here today, and just give a shout out as well to the Living the Green Life. They put out some great content every month. I know they put a lot of time and effort into that. So there's a lot of really good tips there. Any final questions, type them into the chat box here. And while we're waiting to see if there are any, Shannon, any final things that you want to leave folks with, or questions we wish that someone had asked you?
Um, I think I really just like driving the idea that sustainable practices should not all be done at once. I know I said it earlier, but I feel like a lot of people do get overwhelmed with thinking that we're trying to be more green, we have to do it all at once, but that's not sustainable in itself. Um, so one thing here and there, and adding to that list that you're trying to complete with your sustainable practices, just take it week by week, month by month, and just try your best. And I think after years down the line, I think you'll be a very, very sustainable person when you think about it.
Yeah, amen to that. So thank you, Shannon. Thanks to everybody for joining us here
Thank
today.
you.
As I mentioned at the beginning, the next Lunchtime Learning webinar is going to take place on Tuesday, October 11th on electric micromobility. That is going to be a fantastic one. In addition, if you have any topics you'd like to see us cover, please feel free to type them into the chat box before you go, or you can email us at greenny@dec.ny.gov. Again, that's greenny@dec.ny.gov. We're looking for your suggestions for future topics to cover. So thank you, Shannon. Thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Brendan. Thanks, everyone.